In January 217 BCE, Rome elected two new consuls, Gaius Flaminius and
Senators,
Lucius Servilius,
citizens
with
of
the previous
Rome,
year's consul,
by the will of the people,
Sempronius, presiding
I
over the
declare
election.
our new consuls.
At the same time, former consul Cornelius Scipio was granted proconsular command, a practice Rome often followed
Esteemed
to
colleagues,
ensure
the
continuity
grain
of
shortage
operations.
in Alexandria requires our immediate attention.
Indeed, but we must...
Scipio was scheduled to depart on March 14, with 10,000 troops to join his brother in Spain, while his son was decided to remain in Italy as a junior officer.
Sempronius hurried to Rome to preside over the consul elections, and then returned to Piacenza. Coinciding with his return, Hannibal began his advance toward Etruria. Sempronius moved to intercept him, and the two forces clashed in a fierce battle that lasted until nightfall, but no decisive outcome was reached. Afterwards, Hannibal moved into the Ligurian region, near Etruria.
For Rome,
On March
we shall
15,
conquer.
the newly
Failure
inaugurated
is not
consul
an option.
Flaminius took command of the army and marched toward Arretium, one of Etruria's major cities. Upon learning of Flaminius's movements, Hannibal turned south to approach Arretium. During this maneuver, his army had to cross swampy terrain, resulting in the death of many soldiers and animals. Around this time, Hannibal developed an eye infection that eventually left his right eye blind, earning him the enduring historical nickname Hannibal the One-Eyed.
The legions are moving,
As Hannibal
my
reached the
commander.
outskirts of
They are
Arretium,
heading north,
he wasted no
towards the
time
river.
in taunting Flaminius. Entire towns across Etruria fell to his army's ruthless plundering and destruction.
Right.
Flaminius, watching the devastation unfold before his eyes, could barely contain his fury. In the War Council, he demanded immediate pursuit of Hannibal. His officers, however, counseled caution, urging him to wait for the other consul, Servilius, who was marching north under Senate orders to join him. Servilius was still some distance away.
You dare defy Rome! You will all pay
Ignoring
for
their
this
advice,
insolence.
an enraged Flaminius stormed from the council chamber, giving the order to prepare the entire army for immediate combat.
Flaminius, a plebeian by birth, had long clashed with Rome's patrician Senate. He had championed agrarian reforms, distributing lands from conquered Gaul to Rome's poor, and supported laws that curtailed the economic privileges of the elite.
But how do we proceed without alerting his spy? Men,
He
This
built
road will
roads
be the
including
envy
the
of the
Via
world.
Flaminia, still
Build it
used
strong.
today, and grand public works, gaining the adoration of the common people but the deep enmity of the aristocracy. Distrusting the Senate's ability to manipulate religious omens, he even bypassed traditional ceremonies at his inauguration. The Senate therefore pressed him to resign. In other words, Flaminius was carrying out his consulship under constant pressure to resign. Ultimately, the only way for him to overcome the situation was to defeat Hannibal and prove his capability. Hannibal understood this situation perfectly.
Finally, the Roman army of 25,000 soldiers, led by Consul Flaminius, began pursuing Hannibal. Arretium lay at the eastern edge of Etruria. Beyond it to the east lay Umbria, where Lake Trasimene was located, surrounded by gentle hills and the foothills of the mountains. At At that time, only a single narrow road ran along the lake, with the water on one side and forested hills on the other. After marching a certain distance along this narrow path, the terrain opened onto a small plain, with mountains rising like walls on the opposite side. By blocking the entrances to both the lake and the plain, and hiding Carthaginian troops along the forested narrow road, Hannibal could trap the Roman army like mice in a snare. He planned to drive the Roman soldiers into this position and annihilate them with an ambush.
Historical accounts describe the road along Lake Trasimene as narrow, but to move 25,000 Roman soldiers with tents, supplies, and cavalry, it must have been wider than a single file. A path only 1 or 2 men wide would have slowed the army too much for any effective pursuit, while a road too wide would have allowed the Romans to form proper battle lines, making complete annihilation unlikely. Scholars estimate the road was roughly 4 to 8 meters wide, enough for several soldiers to march abreast, but too narrow for a full combat formation.
Hannibal, anticipating Flaminius's impatience, set up a conspicuous camp on the small plain that emerged from the lakeside road. This was a classic bait strategy. The position suggested that the main Carthaginian force had already crossed the lake and was preparing for an open field battle. Flaminius, seeing the camp, fell for the ruse. Hidden along the wooded slopes of the hills and behind nearly every approach except the lake, Carthaginian troops lay in ambush.
Flaminius's army reached the lake at dusk and set up camp for the night.
The mist will provide cover.
At first light the next day, the Romans marched along the narrow lakeside road without conducting reconnaissance. Heavy morning mist further obscured visibility, concealing the ambush. When the Roman vanguard reached the plain, the soldiers spread out, seeing only the apparent Carthaginian camp ahead, unaware of the deadly trap lying behind them.
Once the Roman column had fully entered the trap, Hannibal gave the order to attack. From the forests on the hills, Carthaginian troops erupted with a sudden roar, striking the Romans from all sides. The Roman army realized too late that it was surrounded. Before they could form proper lines, Carthaginian soldiers surged forward from every direction. Shouts for help mingled with the enemy's cries, throwing the Romans into chaos. Flaminius, however, maintained his composure, running among his men and urging them to hold their ground. But the din of battle rendered his commands almost inaudible. Trapped between the mountains, the forest, and the lake, the Romans desperately sought an escape route. Every avenue was blocked by Hannibal's forces. The only open side led to the lake.
Marcus, is that you?
By now, there was no escaping for the Roman soldiers. Orders from their superiors meant nothing. Each man fought only for his own survival. The battle had long ceased to be an organized fight. It had become a slaughter, a one-sided massacre at the hands of Hannibal's army. Even Consul Flaminius, fighting valiantly alongside his closest men, fell heroically in the chaos. With his death, the morale of the Romans collapsed entirely.
The mist!
Panic swept through the ranks.
Flee for your lives!
Soldiers ran indiscriminately, paying no heed to mountains or the lake.
There's nowhere to go!
But wherever they fled, Carthaginian troops hunted them down. Desperation drove many into the lake itself. Swimming in armor and carrying weapons proved futile. Most drowned or were too exhausted to survive, only to be cut down by the waiting Carthaginian cavalry.
About 6,000 soldiers of the Roman vanguard, unaware of the devastation behind them, fought fiercely and managed to break through the enemy lines. They climbed up a nearby hill to observe the situation, but all they could hear were shouts and the clashing of weapons, unable to grasp what was really happening.
I can't see a thing.
When the morning mist finally lifted, it became clear that almost all their comrades had been annihilated.
Keep moving, don't look back!
The vanguard withdrew quickly, only to be pursued the following day by Carthaginian cavalry. Exhausted by hunger and terror, the survivors believed the promise of Hannibal's lieutenant, Hannibal, who claimed they would be spared if they surrendered their weapons. Trusting him, they complied, but Hannibal broke his word, capturing them all and chaining them as prisoners.
This was the Battle of Lake Trasimene, which took place in June 217 BCE. One of the reasons for Rome's defeat was the impatience of Consul Flaminius, but Hannibal's meticulous ambush, combined with the weather conditions, was simply perfect. Roman casualties reached 15,000, and very few soldiers survived to return to Rome. Young
Lake
Scipio,
Trasimene,
being assigned under
217
Consul
BCE to
Servilius, avoided the catastrophe.
Battlefield.
Carthaginian casualties are estimated to have been between 1,500 and 500. Hannibal, aiming to dismantle the Latin League, released the prisoners who were part of the Latin allies without conditions, while the Roman sold were kept bound. Hannibal attempted to find the body of Consul Flaminius to give him a proper burial, but he was never able to locate it.
We are lost!
When the news of the
This
disaster
is the
reached
end of
Rome, fear and chaos swept through the city. That's all for today. We will continue the story in the next episode. Thank you for watching.